A few months ago, I received an unexpected message from my ex, Natalie. After all this time, I thought she might be reaching out to reconnect, perhaps to discuss some closure or even revisit the past. But when we met, she was not alone. She had a 5-year-old boy in tow, someone I had never met before. She claimed that the child was mine and demanded that I pay child support. The child's age matched the time that had passed since we'd last spoken, but I was skeptical. I had no reason to trust her. There was no way to be sure without the truth. I offered to support the boy, cover medical costs, and be an active part of his life, but only if we could do a DNA test. That's when Natalie's reaction surprised me. She seemed offended, almost furious, that I would question her. Instead of the conversation I had hoped for, she insisted that I immediately provide her with the money she deserved. She made all sorts of excuses, even calling my family to tell them that I was trying to avoid taking responsibility for my child. When the excuses ran dry, we finally agreed to the DNA test. The result was clear. I wasn't the father. Natalie's reaction was explosive. She was furious, tears welling up in her eyes, claiming it was unfair. She sobbed that she was only trying to do what was best for her son, and yet I had ruined everything. It was a mess. I walked away from the situation, cutting off all communication with her that day. Weeks later, I was at a family gathering at my parents' house. My brother, friends, and I were having a few drinks, laughing, and joking about the absurdity of what had happened with Natalie. It felt good to finally laugh after everything. But that's when my sister, Claire, showed up. She overheard us mocking Natalie, and her reaction was intense. She stormed into the room, pushing me against the wall, her face red with anger. "How dare you?" she shouted. "How dare you mock a woman who's clearly struggling?" It wasn't the first time Claire had expressed her strong feminist views, but I didn't expect this. She yelled at me for laughing at Natalie, calling us horrible for mocking a single mother. That night, as the party began to wind down, Claire cornered me in the kitchen with our parents. She wasn't finished. Claire went off. She accused me of oppressing Natalie by demanding a DNA test, and even suggested that I had tampered with the results. She said men had the power to do whatever they wanted, and I was abusing that power to harm a woman. I was taken aback. I hadn't expected this level of hostility from my sister. "What about the child?" Claire continued, her voice rising. "You're just going to let that boy grow up without a father? You forced Natalie to be a single mom, and you have a moral obligation to help her. You're a coward, and you're abandoning them." My father, standing nearby, simply murmured that maybe we'd been too cruel with the jokes. But my mother and brother both stood by me, agreeing that I had no responsibility for a child. That wasn't mine. Yet Claire was insistent. She couldn't understand why I wouldn't help. She even argued that, even though I wasn't a biological father, I still had an obligation to step in. "A woman's word goes first," she said firmly. Things only escalated after that. A few days later, Natalie and Claire showed up at my workplace, both holding a large sign that read, "He abandoned his child. Irresponsible father." They caused a scene, attracting the attention of my colleagues. They were trying to shame me, using social pressure to force me into giving Natalie money. I was furious. My boss came over, warning me that if anything like this ever happened again, I'd be fired. I had had enough. It was time to act. I contacted my lawyer, and together, we drafted a legal response to Natalie and Claire's actions. Natalie begged me to drop it. She even offered to take back everything she'd said and promised never to contact me again if I just let it all go. But I wasn't interested in being the good guy anymore. She had crossed the line, and now I was fighting back. At first, the lawsuit seemed to make things worse. Natalie and Claire took to social media, trying to smear my name further. They spread lies, claiming I was abandoning my child and trying to suppress a woman's voice. But each lie they told only worked against them. My lawyer had already anticipated this and was prepared to use their post as evidence of defamation. Soon, the entire family knew what was going on. Most of them were furious with Claire. A few of them even thought she had lost her mind. The situation had spiraled so out of control that it was no longer just about Natalie. It was about Claire, too. Her support for Natalie's lies had backfired horribly. Every post Claire made only gave us more evidence for our case. My lawyer's strategy was clear. Bring everything to light. Harassment, defamation, attempting to jeopardize my career, parental fraud. We even added the social media attacks and their attempts to manipulate me. Eventually, Natalie realized she couldn't win. She agreed to compensate me for damages out of court and disappeared from my life. Claire, however, wasn't as quick to back down. She continued to push her narrative, claiming I was in the wrong, even though everything was turning against her. When Claire saw how bad things had gotten and realized that she was on her own in this fight, she panicked. She deleted every single post she had made, trying to erase the evidence. But by that point, we had everything: screenshots, recordings, backup copies of every message. At the final meeting where we discussed the settlement, Claire broke down. She cried, begging me to forgive her and end the legal battle. But it was too late. She had multiple chances to stop, to admit she was wrong, but she chose to keep pushing. Now, she had to face the consequences of her own actions. Claire ended up owing me a significant amount of money, plus all of the legal costs. My mother stepped in to help her pay, but my father insisted that Claire pay him back over time. And now, Claire has a considerable debt to work through, all because she refused to let the situation go.